We are gathered for the first meeting of the Social Equity Servicing Corporation, which is a new DASNY subsidiary. We have a quorum present, but before I can talk about it and its significance, the significance of the formation of this subsidiary for DASNY, I have to ask Sarah Richards to read into the record all of the niceties, the required information about video conferencing.
Thank you. The board is meeting today via video conference. The members are participating via Zoom. The public does have the ability to Zoom into this meeting and watch or listen to the proceedings via video or telephone. The video of this meeting, as well as a transcript, will be posted on the DASNY website. We do have a quorum of the board with only one member absent, which is Mr. Ken Evans, and several members of DASNY senior staff and management. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will turn it back to you to move forth with the meeting.
You're very kind. You're very kind. This corporation was formed, and we'll ask the president to make a few comments when I'm finished before we get into the business of the meeting. This was formed in order to balance the scales in minority communities with regard to construction of retail outlets, minority communities which have been adversely and disproportionately adversely affected by the application of laws regarding cannabis and the use of other drugs. We at DASNY believe that this is going to be a terrific and successful operation. It is something that we support enormously. Mr. President, is there anything you want to say about this before we get into the agenda for the meeting?
Yeah, no, thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's one thing I would like to say, because I think it's very important. As the state, from a policy perspective, made decisions to assist this group of individuals who have been disproportionately impacted in getting successfully into the adult use commercial space. One of the things they wanted to do was help with financing. But in addition to that, they also wanted to help with the difficulties in design, construction, location of facilities that often mean that even people with licenses cannot get into a good commercial area. And they see DASNY, through the work we have done, our core work on the construction side, as the right authority to assist with the location, design, and construction of these facilities. It's not exactly what we do historically, but it's very similar to what we do for OMH, OPWDD on some of our smaller facilities, some of our smaller renovation work for SUNY and CUNY. But this will allow us to have the buying power, the relationship power, and the expertise of DASNY lent to a group of people that historically would not be able to have that level of expertise or buying power to be successful. So this work is significant for the community. It will be a real boon to the industry. It also will set the example for what the state expects the adult use cannabis industry to look like in New York. And so we're very proud of the work we're doing at DASNY. Introduced two people worked with Steve Curl before, John Savano, who set up the construction side of this, and Jim Bapoli, who's doing the real property work on this. But the types of facilities we'll be locating and building will be first class. We're looking at locations in great areas. We've done a very hard analysis of where locations should be to be successful. We're doing work now on procuring the various components that should go into these facilities. We've done a design build RFP. We've selected a group of 8 to 10 design build firms that have built cannabis dispensaries throughout the country. So we'll really have the best in class people working on this. So I'm very excited and proud that DASNY was selected as the authority to oversee the implementation of this important program. We've talked on several occasions during the last meeting about the $50 million. The $50 million was appropriated by the state's general fund but it will be reimbursed through the collection of taxes on adult use cannabis. And one of the things that's so exciting about the MRT legislation is those taxes that are generated by the sale are committed to going back into the communities disproportionately impacted on a negative basis. And whether that's through building these facilities or enhancing other community services, doing workforce development type work, those are types of things that this money is being reinvested for, that I think is very exciting. And for DASNY to be involved and put our stamp on this, I think will be really significant to DASNY as we go down in the future. So I'm really excited about this. I know there's a stress for everyone to work on this since it's a new industry, but it really is exciting work, and we're really helping a community of people who've been impacted. As someone mentioned earlier, I am on the board of the Office of Cannabis Management, or the Control Board. I am recusing myself from any regulatory work associated with this program. But if you look at the regulations that were passed by the other board members, we are going to have people who were impacted by literally being put in jail over cannabis laws where their counterparts may not have been put in jail, over incarcerated, but they also have to have run a business. So it's not just that you had a run-in with the law and were put into jail over cannabis, but also you have to have come out of that situation and run a business and now be committed to growing a productive adult use cannabis dispensary. So it's very exciting for me, very exciting for the state. And as we begin to embrace and see the pictures and the ribbon cuttings and the facilities, I think the board members will be excited about the work that we're doing here. So I really appreciate the front end work that we're doing now to celebrate on the back end with these successful entrepreneurs, really get a chance they would not have gotten otherwise.
I am proud of your work, Mr. President, with the development of the, I'll call it the legal cannabis business in New York. It is extraordinary to have you as a part of that. DASNY can be proud of its current, what is proposed as its current role in the establishment of retail outlets. But to your point, and you've made it several times, it is significant that there is now a social equity component of the cannabis business, which is designed to ensure that people who have been disproportionately and negatively affected by their communities that have been affected by the use of cannabis now will have an opportunity to put people, to showcase people up front, put them in businesses as owners of businesses that will be able to sell cannabis lawfully and hopefully productively and profitably. Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. What we're doing is building, so let's get at that. We have bylaws of the SESC. The members have had a chance to see those bylaws. Nadine is going to walk us through quickly how these bylaws differ from what we may have seen at DASNY in the past. Oh, by the way, before Nadine starts, this is Nadine's meeting. Everything I'm going to do, I'm going to refer to Nadine. So I'll shut up, Nadine. You go do what you got to do.
Not at all, Mr. Chairman. So the first item on the agenda, is my, just something just said, my internet connection was
No, you're fine.
okay. So the first item on the agenda is a resolution to adopt the bylaws for the newly formed subsidiary. As you recall, during our last special meeting on June 17th, this board approved a resolution authorizing us, DASNY, to file the certificate of incorporation with the Department of State, Secretary of State, to establish the subsidiary, which we're statutorily authorized to create. We have since received the certificate of incorporation from the Department of State, and now, as indicated, we are moving forward to present the bylaws for our and other supporting documentation to create the Social Equity Servicing Corporation. The bylaws essentially mirror DASNY's current bylaws and the bylaws that we've had with our other subsidiaries. I will call your attention to section 1.1 of the bylaws, which provides a description of the establishment of the new subsidiary. It just outlines the role that the subsidiary will play. We've spoke about the loan servicing, the lease servicing, and the leasing and designing and build out and equipping of the facilities that are going to be used as conditional adult use retail cannabis dispensaries. That is outlined in section 1.1 of the bylaws. And then on section 4.4, which is the section that deals with contracts and actions requiring board approval, we have maintained the board approval of contracts in excess of $300,000 unless the contract constitutes an exempt contract as the term is defined in DASNY's procurement guidelines. The only change that has been made is that we've clarified that those contracts that are entered into by the corporation as authorized agents and for the sole and specific purposes of the private fund shall not require board approval. Contracts that will fall into this category are similar to those operational contracts that the board currently does not approve, specifically the construction management agreement, the lease and loan servicing agreement that the subsidiary will enter into with the fund and or the fund's operating subsidiary. Those are the.
Is there a cap on that?
I'm sorry, your voice went in.
Is there a cap on that amount that I didn't see that. In other words, typically.
Wait, you're asking, Jerry, whether there's a cap on the amount that the board does not have to approve?
No, there's not a cap. You mean the contracts that we're executing on behalf of the fund or the fund operating entity? There is no cap on that. It's typical. It's similar to our current operations in that the board does not approve operational or administrative contracts that DASNY enters into. There is a cap on other contracts. Just referring back to the document. In excess of $300,000.
So Nadine, given that we're getting into a business as a new business, would you, between now and when we meet again, consider whether the bylaws ought to create a cap beyond which the board has to offer its approval, at least for a year? I'm asking the question, would you consider doing that? I'm not asking you to agree to do that now.
Are you speaking to a cap on the documents or the contracts that we're entering into with the as agent for the fund?
Yes.
One clarification on that. Okay.
Yes. Jerry, does that give you comfort?
Yeah, I mean, and it can be a significant amount. I'm not looking to.
Right. I got it. And so does, and I'm sure Nadine gets it too. I mean, it's not, Nadine, I know you're on the call. I'm not talking about you as if you're not here, but maybe for a period of time, we ought to consider giving the board an opportunity to see the big ones, whatever you decide that is.
And just so that I understand, these are the agreements with the fund, but not the underlying agreements that we're entering into with the dispensary operators, because there are going to be a lot of those agreements of various amounts.
So you set the cap at a high enough number so that the board doesn't have to go through the nits and lice of day-to-day agreements. Just create a number that makes some sense. I'd like to be able to say a year from now that the board did look at operations agreements, but they were substantial in size, and that maybe it gives us some sense of satisfaction. Is there anybody on the phone who disagrees with that?
This is Joan. I don't disagree, but I also think because we don't know what we don't know right now, maybe
Right.
developing some sort of report for us as well, just so we get a sense of what these contracts look like or what they're for. I think that would be helpful so we can kind of get a better understanding of this. Just a thought.
I don't disagree, Joan, but it's a huge, I mean, as Nadine points out, there are going to be a bunch of these contracts. that we will not, whatever cap she creates beyond which the board has to approve, I'm not sure that I want to read that report. I mean, I trust staff to do what staff does, which is to, I mean, the construction folk are going to do a great job of putting this into play and making it work. I'll leave it to Nadine, if you don't mind, to decide whether creating some sort of, 5-line reporting mechanism that she has an intern do, if that makes sense. If it does to your staff, Nadine, then run with it. If it doesn't, say so.
I also think, Mr. Chairman, it may make sense at the Social Equity Serving Corp board meetings generally to have a president/management reports where we can give some updates as we go on, various components, whether it's construction or design or,
That's a great idea, Ruben, and I accept.
Yep.
Done deal, full stop.
And it can be simple, right?
Yeah, exactly. We'll do like we do typically on our board meetings.
Right.
Okay, cool. I've got it. Nadine, are you done or close to done?
Well, those were the only substantive edits that were made to the bylaws. Everything else mirrors our current bylaws. So is the submission of the report as an alternative to putting a cap on the type of contracts? Does that meet the board's?
No, I think we talked about both, Nadine. I think, and again, I'm not Mike, there's no intention to just the first year of this thing. It's a new thing for us, right? We just need to, whatever number you want. It doesn't have anything crazy contract out there.
And again, in terms of the consideration of this point, I think it's important that we limit for the liability issues that we talked about, to the extent that we're acting purely as an agent and we're saying we're, wearing that hat. Usually an agent doesn't have discretion with respect to, or is looking, it's clear what the parameters are. And so the introduction of actually having, an approval process, even at a certain level, we should consider it, but it might, create exposure where we clearly are intent on not, minimizing, mitigating any type of exposure.
And Ricardo, if that's the response, I mean, I hear you. If you and Nadine come to the conclusion that there are reasons to do this or reasons not to do it, that's fine. Whatever you decide works for us. But we've now raised it on the record. Jerry, thank you for that. We'll see what you all come back with.
Great.
John had his hand up. I saw a couple of times, so I just want to.
But
John,
are we going to be asked to approve the bylaws at this meeting?
yes.
Yes.
Okay. I guess I had one sort of philosophical comment, and that is I think the bylaws, again, I can't get into any of my documents, but I think the bylaws contemplate having an audit committee for this entity. And
you don't want to be its chair?
no, the issue is this, what the audit committee does, one of the substantive things that the audit committee does and the internal audit department does, is it makes decisions about how to allocate resources. So, every year we get a report on what has been scheduled or contemplated for audit. They are all prioritized. Some are more urgent than others. But at the end of the day, we can never do all of the audits that we want to do.
Sure.
And even if the people on both audit committees were the same people, we would sort of be depending on that in order for it to be coherent. But I'm not sure that we're doing ourselves any favor by having two audit committees. I think we're actually creating a scenario where something that we can't foresee right now could be, problematic.
So John, let me ask you let me ask you a question, and I had not considered that. What you just said makes a great deal of sense. If the DASNY Audit Committee is going to review materials, audit type materials from the SESC DEFG subsidiary.
HIJK-LMNOP.
Right, no, I can go there with you. And I know the next letter. But maybe the subsidiary does not have an audit committee. Maybe the subsidiary uses, though, the internal auditor to review various documents that are then reported or not reported to the DASNY Audit Committee.
My assumption has been that internal audit will audit the subsidiary just like any other DASNY operation. I mean, maybe we should talk about this. Our other subsidiaries don't have operations. We don't worry about auditing, most of them because,
they're businesses. I got it. I understand.
Yeah, but this thing is this is a major operation of DASNY, and it will. I mean, this in terms of priority. My feeling about this, and Jenna and I have talked about this a little bit, is that when the subsidiary is up and running, it should roll and let it roll for a while, and then we figure out what we should audit, and then we start to audit. But I think we're all interested in bringing the subsidiary under the the cover of the internal audit department.
Absolutely, but what I also hear you saying is that the subsidiary is not going to have, and in your view, should not have a separate separate audit committee.
That's what I mean. I thought about this, and I'm guessing, and I don't want to put words in Nadine's mouth, but I'm guessing that the subsidiary looks more independent and stands up better as a separate entity if it has these committees. But I also think that the criteria for legal independence and separateness is numerous. There are other things that are more significant, to the subsidiary being an independent entity than having these committees. And so, for example, the most significant thing might well be whether it has its own payroll. I don't know whether it will or it won't, but whether it has its own payroll, whether it has dedicated staff, whether it really does operate as something other than an alter ego of DASNY, that will be much more significant to a substantive test than whether we have an audit committee or a governance committee. I'm not as concerned about governance. I'm more concerned about audit.
I confess I had not thought that through carefully, John. Thank you. Nadine, are there, I mean, I haven't, I don't recall whether the proposed bylaws of the SESC contain provisions for audit. I just don't remember. Are they in there?
Yes, at section 5.1. The committees that are identified are both the audit and the governance committee.
Well, then let's not, for the moment. Let's eliminate both of those while the board thinks out loud about whether we should do that. So maybe this is not the time to approve the bylaws. If we don't approve them, what's the result? What happens if the SESC does not have bylaws until September?
Well, it's the operative document for the entity to be stood up. So
Can I make a suggestion?
Well, wait. My suggestion would be then that we delete the provisions for audit and governance. And then if we, after talking to you, Nadine, and talking to Ricardo and others, it appears that we can refashion those provisions so that they fit the need or eliminate them completely. And let's let's make the decision now to eliminate those provisions from the bylaws that are to be approved today, and then create those provisions if it appears to be necessary before the September meeting. Can we do that?
Yes.
Then let's.
Let's do that. That gives us a bylaws, because we do need bylaws.
Of course, as revised.
And can we, do we have an understanding? I'm not sure we do. We're going to talk about other things offline, which is fine. But I have other comments that are fairly substantive, that, you know, we're originally we wanted to get things on the record, but if we're going to do it offline, just as long as I know we're going to do it.
Well, John, I've just said we are. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay. No, not just about bylaws, not just about bylaws, the structure of the thing as it has been presented to us.
Okay.
The
Well,
deal.
let's
The
work
basic deal.
the deal itself.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't,
You're thinking about and talking about in major part the limited partnership agreement.
yeah,
Okay.
but I'm also, when I look at the documents that are on the table, we don't have, as DASNY, we don't have an interest in the operating agreement of the LLC. We don't care about that. We don't care about really any of the documents that relate to, you know, raising the money. But I don't see what I think should be something like a master servicing agreement between the operating subsidiary, this is the Cannabis operating subsidiary, and DASNY. Because
Wait. Let me make sure I'm clear. You mean we've already created the subsidiary and it exists already. The documents have been filed. We can't do anything with it because it doesn't have bylaws, it doesn't have policies and procedures. What you're saying is that you think there should be an operating agreement between the subsidiary and DASNY. What would be in it?
No, what I'm saying is that the Cannabis Fund is set up with an operating subsidiary.
Yes.
And the operating subsidiary is going to commission the work that DASNY is going to perform. In other words, so the relationship that we are focused on is that relationship.
Okay.
And I don't see a document for that. And I think there should be a document for that. And I think that should be the document that this board reviews and votes on. Because that's where we define what we're doing and what our limitations are on liability and what our role is going to be. And that's where all of the, you know, the business terms kind of get allocated. So
let's give the problem then to the DASNY legal staff. You've asked the question. Let's get an opinion from the legal staff whether or not we should require that. I mean, I get it, and I hadn't thought of it, frankly. So many things here I hadn't thought of, but I'd love to hear Nadine and Ricardo and others opine on whether or not they think that such is necessary. Now, what this does is to raise for me in clear focus the need, the question whether the board needs its own counsel for the creation and operation of well, not the creation, the operation of the subsidiary. You and I are going to talk offline about that a bit, but if such an operating agreement is deemed necessary, and Ed Steiner did not suggest it in his presentation, it may be that we should consider asking him the question before the board makes a decision we should spend the money for. Hey, Beryl, back.
Hi. Yeah, I came back.
All right. John, is that process acceptable to you?
yeah, I mean, I have the same I have the same feeling that you have, which is what did I miss? And
Well, we don't know. This is.
yeah,
we're
I don't
getting
know.
to it.
That's why I suggested earlier that we may want to get some counsel in here, and I'm not trying to second guess any of the existing counsel. What I'm really saying is that a counsel to the situation is perhaps not the best way. Everyone would benefit if we had lawyers working the way that lawyers typically work in a business deal, where the parties all have somebody thinking about it from their perspective.
From their individual perspective. John,
Exactly.
I've hired board counsel in the past, and I've insisted on board counsel in certain situations in the past when I was on a board and I had some question, not trying to not questioning the opinion of House counsel, but doing what you need to do to make sure that you got the best independent counsel decision you can have. And I'm comfortable if that's where we need to go. We'll go there. There's no great shape. We'll get there.
Yeah, I just want to say for the record, in my non-lawyer hat, typically when we work with customer agencies, whether it's a SUNY, CUNY, or a West Point that is not, a state agency or authority, we have contracts with those agencies around what we will be doing for them, how we will do it, how we'll be reimbursed, paid, whatever. We will do that for this as well. Those contracts are being drafted as we speak. There's an MOU that is going back and forth between DASNY and the Office of Cannabis Management. We're working through what the servicing agreement should be between the fund and DASNY and or the subsidiary. So I just want to make for the record, our legal team and our construction team and our financing team, does this typically for all of our clients and constitutes, our agreement on how we're going to work with those. Obviously, this is new, it is different, but the DASNY board does not approve those contracts as a normal course of business. But I want to assure you that we are working through those contracts because they are important to how DASNY does business. And so those things are evolving. We can determine, with legal counsel input as to how involved the board should or should not be, what you want to review or not review. Obviously, it's all going to be a public record. But I just want to make sure that it's clear that we are doing all of that work. It's not like we have missed that as a work item.
Mr. President, I'm comfortable that I've got no issue with the way that DASNY has done business in the past. No issue at all. I'm really comfortable with that. I've got no issue with DASNY's bona fides here. None whatsoever. This is an important, we're making a series of important decisions, but, and I have no issue, no question about the complete reliability of the legal department's advice on the way that DASNY has done business in the past. We're doing something we've never done before. And I simply want to be certain. If Nadine, if you present this question to Ed Steiner and Alethea Nanku, and Ed comes back with an absolute no, we don't need that, then the board's going to have to sit down and think hard about what we're doing going forward. Do we need what John has suggested? And I'll say it honestly, I am headed in that direction because we've never done this before. And it's not because we don't know how to do what we know how to do, we do. I'm just a bit concerned that that all the questions that we need to ask and the answers we need to hear are not on the table Ricardo, you're trying to say something. What is it?
Let me
Oh, God.
say to your
John,
point.
John, let Ricardo.
This is the most important point in the meeting. I'm just, a limited partner, the reason that I want the board or to see that agreement between the DASNY sub and the operating sub is that a limited partner is not a limited partner if it acts outside of a passive role. It becomes a general partner, and that's a matter of law. In order to be a limited partner,
We
a
understand that,
limited
John.
partner has to stay a limited partner.
We understand
No,
that, John. We
So we
understand
can
that.
cover that. We can cover
Ed-
that, but that's the
Ed-
agreement that I think I want to see. I think the board should see. It's structural. It's structural. I don't want to
Ed-
get into your operating boots at all.
No,
Wait, please. Ed Steiner touched on the subject, did not get to the operating agreement question, didn't hear it, and then didn't respond to it. I don't know. I want to hear what DASNY council thinks about it. I'm comfortable that DASNY council is going to tell DASNY what it believes DASNY wants to hear. I've been there. I've done that. I've dealt with that. I've appointed board counsel because I wasn't comfortable with that. So, John, I'm not suggesting that you're wrong, but we haven't given DASNY counsel an opportunity to get that right because we've not raised the question. So let's give them a chance to get it right. Whatever right means to them. So when Nanku and Steiner and Fontaine and Salomon come back with an answer, then we'll see what that answer is. And if it gives you comfort, great. If it doesn't, then we'll figure something out. How am I doing? John, how am I doing?
I didn't mean to cut off Ricardo. I
No,
apologize.
and I'll be very quick, John. No, thank you very much for your comments. And just in response, one, this process is a sequential process, meaning that the idea first is that we get certain documents, the MOU, the LPA in place, and then we'll work on, and certainly that's on our radar in terms of working on a servicing agreement, an operating agreement. It might be a master operating agreement or individual service agreements that cover, again, all the service operations that to be performed by the subsidiary. And that's an important point. These services are not being performed by DASNY, they're being performed by the subsidiary. So your point regarding when the limited partner takes on additional responsibilities, that doesn't conform with the structure that we have right now, because it's really the subsidiary that's taking on those responsibilities. So that's one point. And then the other one is, I just want to be clear, and I know Nadine already made this point, and I think, Al, I heard you say, the council will basically tell DASNY what it wants to hear. That's, as Ruben can tell you, we tell both management and the board, DASNY needs to hear.
Yes, I appreciate that.
There's a difference.
And this is
John didn't say that. I said that, Ricardo.
Okay.
And because I've been there before. You have no idea how many times I've had to pay counsel for an extraordinary sums of money where counsel was telling me what they thought I needed to hear. I don't want that here because this is deep space. We're out there, and I just if all of the counsel on this, including the law firm, come back and say absolutely not, we don't, and here's why we don't. To your point, Ricardo, if they come back and say you're nuts, let's make sure that you don't do that. It's unnecessary. I mean, these people operate in New York. They have licenses. They do what they do. Their legal ethics, I accept that. But if they come back with an absolutely clear description of what's not necessary, then we're there. Then I'm comfortable with that. And they're Squire. They're one of the best law firms in the nation. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Makes sense. I just want to give them a chance, John Gardner, to hear what the question is so that they can come back and give us an answer. If it's an equivocal answer, then we'll make some decisions. If it's not equivocal, then we'll take the advice. It is my sense. Nadine, sorry.
Yes, if I could just interject. So we did, Squire is handling the LPA agreement. We also received an opinion, and I have been working with Nixon Peabody addressing the agency principal relationship. So this has been addressed. We have covered it, and to make sure we have multiple opinions. So we can also work on having a presentation performed by Nixon Peabody as well, if that would give the board more comfort to it as we establish and identify this agency principal relationship, what the subsidiary should be doing and executing as compared to what the DASNY board should be reviewing. And
That is music to my ears, Nadine. I want to say something on a personal note. One of the reasons I want other council doing this is that I'm always the pain in the ass, and I don't want to be the guy that like gets into, dust ups with people. I really, this is a volunteer gig. This is not one of butt heads, but the way that business deals, at least in my experience, the way that you get to where you need to be is that there is some headbutting. And if we get somebody else to do that, I'd be thrilled as long as somebody is doing it. That's all I care about.
Nadine,
these questions. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
is there an opportunity for those on this call who would like to see the agency principal research? Is there a chance that we might see it?
I don't see why not. We could prepare a memo and submit it confidentially under, privilege confidential.
Okay, then would you?
Yes.
Okay, that's terrific. John, for the moment, I find that satisfactory. I want to see it. I want to know what, I'm sorry, what was the firm?
Nixon Peabody.
Nixon Peabody?
Mm-hmm.
That's where Jeff Pohl and Chris Rice will.
Yeah, they will do nicely.
Yes.
Then thank you, Nadine, for adding that to the conversation. I think, John, we can stop trying to suss out some sort of answer and move on. Can we? Oh, wait. We're modifying the bylaws to eliminate the governance and audit provisions. Having said that, Nadine, you'll have to go through and make sure, so you'll have to have somebody make sure that there are not references to those provisions in other parts of the bylaws. So we'll simply rely on the law department to get that right. And then but assuming that we can get all, and Sarah, the record should reflect this, assuming we can get all of that into this record, essentially, then I think we're prepared to vote, unless, Nadine, there are other matters in the bylaws you think need to be raised.
No, I have nothing further.
Okay, Paul?
As you're talking about the governance committee, just one thing that will be coming up in the future is the fact that there will be metrics established for the subsidiary.
Mm-hmm.
We will just figure out how to address those in the absence. If we're saying we're pulling the governance committee, normally that is the role of governance, as the proper as part of the proper DASNY board, but we just have to think through what that might mean in terms of would the DASNY board approve any metrics that were established for the sub.
Okay, all right, terrific. Then I think we're prepared to vote on the adoption, the resolution to adopt the bylaws as revised. Are there any objections to taking a vote on that issue, on that matter? Okay, so may I have a motion, please, to adopt the SESC bylaws as revised, so that we have, I'm sorry, the resolution as it appears in the SESC board meeting materials. May I have that? May I have a motion to adopt that resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jerry. Are there any opposed to the adoption of the resolution to adopt the bylaws as revised? No opposition. Are there any abstentions? No abstentions. Then the bylaws as revised are approved unanimously. Again, it's Nadine's meeting. She's going to present the slate of officers proposed for SESC.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the next resolution is for the election of the following officers of the corporation. We've identified Stanley J. Reed and Stephen Winters Bona as the assistant treasurers, and also proposed as assistant secretaries myself, Ricardo Solomon, Dina Modio, Frederick Clark, Michael Logan, Kay Edwards, and Valerie Himalewski.
Thank you very much, Nadine. We know some of these people, we don't know others, but may I have a motion, please, to approve the resolution for the election of officers for the new subsidiary corporation? A motion to approve the resolution to elect or to
I
appoint.
move. So moved.
Thank you, John.
Second,
And is there a second?
second,
Thank you. Was that you, Joan?
that was Lisa.
Oh, hey, Lisa, thank you. I don't know your voice yet, but I'll pick it up. Are there any opposed to the motion to adopt the resolution? Are there any abstentions from the vote? Hearing none, the motion is approved. I'm sorry, the motion passes, the resolution is approved, and it is approved unanimously. Nadine, you've got the floor. The resolution adopting certain policies, procedures, and guidelines.
Yes, pursuant to this resolution, all references to DASNY's policies, procedures, and guidelines are deemed to refer to this corporation, the newly formed corporation, to the extent it's applicable to the lawful purposes of the corporation. The corporation will be required to comply with all the policies, procedures, and guidelines that DASNY is required to by statute, which will be adopted, included policies, procedures, guidelines related to governance principles, procurement, disposition of property, ethics, committee charters, and all other policies and procedures or guidelines that are applicable to the operations of the corporation. However, because we are dealing with a private entity that will not necessarily be subject to certain state mandates, we've included an exception for those contracts entered into the corporation as agent for the fund, and for the sole and specific purposes of the fund. In those instances, the corporation may be guided, but not mandated to proceed by such policies and procedures unless it's required by law. And our only intent is to present these necessary changes that directly conflict with the policies and procedures that require board approval, similar to the amendment in the investment policy that Kim brought up, raised in our the DASNY board meeting. We will, if there are any policies that are in direct contravention with the authority's current policies and procedures, we will raise it at that point in time.
Terrific. You're also going to have to go through and confirm that there are no policies and procedures that we are adopting that would that require for their reference to audit and governance.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay, terrific.
I thought it was just audit, not governance.
Audit, not governance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hey, Dean, the fund itself, though, they have in their agreement, what they're signing this agreement with, they agree to comply with various, state obligations, like, right? I mean, like whatever procurement obligations are, or MBE requirements or anything like that.
Well, similar to public-private projects that the state usually has a
Right.
a limited amount of funding that's provided in the overall structure of the project. We will not put full MWBE goals on those projects. It will not be the full 30%. So in that instance, then they would be strongly encouraged to put MWBE goals on those projects, rather than having the mandated 30%. So that's an example of something where if it was a full state contract, then we would be required to comply with all aspects of the MWBE program. But because it's a public-private contract, we're guided by those principles, but not mandated.
But they regarding cooperation with any type of investigations or anything.
Oh, yes, yes, that's maintained. Mhm.
That's
Because that's required by law, yes.
thanks. Nate.
Okay. So I'm sorry, I've lost my place. Did I just ask for a vote on that, or did we?
No, we need a motion.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much, Sarah. May I have a motion, please, to approve that resolution adopting certain policies, procedures, et cetera, et cetera.
You got it, Al. Jerry.
Thank you very much.
Second,
Joan. Second, Joan, thank you. Is there any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, are there any abstentions? Then the motion carries, the resolution is approved, and it is approved unanimously, subject to any revisions that are deemed necessary by the discussion we had regarding audit and governance. Okay, I think we're done. We have one more. Nadine, you're going
Mr. Chair.
to the resolution authorizing the staff to take action.
Mr. Chair, in your last statement, you also brought the governance committee. I think we're just limiting it to the audit committee.
To the audit, I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. And Sarah, if you would correct what I just said, I'd be grateful.
Will do.
Thank you. Our final agenda item is to authorize the staff, and I assume it's the staff of DASNY, but it doesn't say so, and the subsidiary doesn't have a staff yet. We're authorizing the staff to take action. What staff?
It will be both it'll be the DASNY staff, but this is a resolution for the subsidiary, so it is the staff of the subsidiary. So DASNY staff are.
So the officers of the subsidiary, this applies to the officers of the subsidiary.
This is not just limited to the officers, it's also the staff who are conducting the underlying work.
Well, John Gardner asked a question a while ago, and I don't know the answer to it. I'm sure it's a simple answer, but does the staff have officers? I'm sorry, does the subsidiary have a staff?
What we will be doing is ensuring that billing and accounting is separated, so that we can identify exactly what work is being.
That's all I needed to hear. The subsidiary staff we will allocate charges where we need to do that. And
correct. And
the DASNY officers will determine how that happens. Kimberly Ellis will determine how that happens.
But at some base level, everyone will be, paid by and working for DASNY. They're just being allocated to the subsidiary.
Yes. Correct. And billed. Oh, sorry, Kim.
Yeah.
And then first, right? And then we get paid back at some point.
Damn right we do.
Correct.
Damn Skippy. All right, then I need a motion, please. I'm not sure what this resolution is needs to say now that we understand that it is being, for Christ, what the resolution needs to say, given that it's a bit more complex. DASNY is going to allocate people to do certain chores, to undertake certain tasks, and the subsidiary will repay the DASNY for its. Do we need a resolution that's stronger than the one we have? Is there anybody on the phone?
What do you mean by stronger?
Yeah.
A more detailed description of. You give me a hard time, Gardner. Come on.
No, I'm trying not to. That's why I want somebody else to do it.
a more.
I just want to have dinner with you. I don't want to argue with you ever.
I miss John Johnson. A more detailed description of how the SESC will reimburse DASNY for the services that DASNY provides to the SESC. Should the resolution say that?
Al, can I say something also? I think not only should it talk about reimbursement, it should talk about a mechanism to account for time, DASNY staff spending time on the SESC. I think that's goes hand in hand.
Well, I in some sense, Joan, I think you're absolutely right. I just, staff, authorizing staff to take action. Well, the DASNY staff to take action on behalf of the subsidiary. Should it say that? Should it talk about a reimbursement mechanism? I just.
Well, it seems to me that there should be maybe a mention of either a service or a reimbursement agreement, whatever is typical that the agency does would be sufficient to sort of say pursuant to whatever you all normally do for this kind of thing. I've typically seen either service agreements, reimbursement agreements, something like that. But I'm not sure that it seems appropriate for the board to dig in on the specific, your accounting or legal or whatever stuff.
And I think it should be noted that all the accounting of the subsidiary is going to roll up into the accounting of DASNY as one entity.
Yeah.
So as a subsidiary, I assume they're bound by the parent parent corporations, bylaws, procurement, whatever. But except in the exceptions that were noted previously.
I think we can approve something, but I think this has to be not as detailed, Joan, as you might want to see it. I understand that. Pursuant to authorizing staff pursuant to a service agreement to take action and to turn it, and whatever else. I mean, there's some. It needs more detail. We don't need to get into the weeds. We simply need to make sure that it says what it needs to say, so that it is an appropriate resolution adopted by the board of the subsidiary company.
But typically, the resolution information is what you're describing is included in the actual agreement, rather than specifying or putting this much detail within the resolution. The resolution does not speak to those specific terms.
Would you object reporting pursuant to authorizing staff pursuant to a service agreement to take action?
That's fine. I was just talking about the
I guess the only question here, Nadine, just so you can think about it, is we're going to have a service agreement with OCM and a service agreement with the fund, but this subsidiary is going to have to do some other things as well, like our other subsidiaries do. And when we do those things, we charge them back like we always do and roll them up in our financial statements. This is not unusual. So trying to, we limit it like that, then all of a sudden we have to have a service agreement with DASNY also, which is this is a wholly owned subsidiary of DASNY.
It's a business, Ruben. It's a business.
It's a wholly owned subsidiary, Al, just like our Atlantic Avenue Corp is, and just like
no, it's not.
It absolutely is.
The subsidiary is a business. We've not been here before.
Atlantic Avenue does work too. Atlantic Avenue negotiates.
Oh, come on. That's not true. It's a different. I agree. We're all
of course, of course, it's a different project. Yeah, the subsidiary doing different projects,
But is the work similar, whether it be legal, accounting, construction management, whatever it is that you're doing?
Same work we do for everybody. Yeah, we're not doing any new work.
That's exactly.
It's the same.
Some of it.
All of it.
It's a different world, Ruben.
It's not construction, Jerry.
Ruben, when have we contracted with an outside real estate consultant to identify locations that
Jim, hey, Joe, no, wait, Jerry, let me ask. Hey, Jim Lapoli, answer the question. Have we ever allocated outside consultants to help us identify real estate?
Yes, we in real property, we manage a portfolio of about approximately 350 commercial leases for the Office of Mental Health and Office of Government and Disabilities. We regularly do site searches for relocations, for new locations. At some point, all of those were, site searches and identified. And we constantly negotiate new leases, new, net renewals, next generation leases. So that is something that we regularly do. And we have a panel of term brokers that we use for those projects.
And we're using one of those brokers for this project, right, Jim?
Correct. CBRE is one of the term brokers we have.
Selected through procurement.
We also do this work for SUNY in their educational opportunity centers. They have a portfolio of about 12 around the state that we do their leasing as well. And in 2 cases now, we're using brokers to do site searches to relocate their schools.
Why don't we delete this proposed resolution from the list of things that we are talking about until we can sit and have a conversation offline about it? I mean, it's too open-ended. Authorizing staff to take action. I don't want to vote if I don't have to vote on that. I don't want to vote on that. I'd like to talk about what that means. Whether it's pursuant to something, whether it's whether the decision is that we have staff. I don't want to get into the weeds. I mean, Kim has described what we're doing, but I'm uncomfortable with this one because I don't.
If you look at the body of the resolution, it specifically indicates what the members of the corporation will be authorized to do. We're authorized to procure the general partner and subsequent fund manager to provide construction management advisory services and procure and design build teams. So
I didn't see that. I didn't see that.
The resolution specifies exactly what work we're going to be performing. I think you're just looking at the title.
Yes, I am.
Do we have a resolution for SUNY similar to this? If it's the same thing, the same work, do we have a similar resolution?
This is the same resolution, similar resolution, except for the whereas clauses, which identifies the entities that we're doing work for. That was used for the other subsidiaries, not specifically for SUNY, because we didn't create a subsidiary to do the SUNY work. But this is the similar language. The work is different, but it's the same format.
I don't know that I have seen the resolution itself. Indeed, I don't think I have.
And I was specific to include more details in the whereas clauses so that it would outline all the relationships between the entities that are involved in this, the statutory authority that indicates what work we can perform, and then the resolution of the final provision indicates specifically what activities DASNY will be undertaking, or the subsidiary will be undertaking.
I will accept your representation and will reverse myself and vote it up. But I'd love to see it. I can't find it. No, not now. I'll accept your representation of what's in it, and ask for a motion to approve it. But ask Amanda if she would to send it to me.
We'll send it to you again, Mr. Chair. It should be behind tab 4 in your book. I apologize if it's not there, but it should be the resolution behind tab 4 in the SESC book.
In the SESC book?
The CSC book, yep.
Hold on.
Or we can,
No, just send it to me. Well,
okay, will do.
I will agree to accept the general counsel's representation that it's all there. And it'll satisfy me. Life is good. Let's vote it. If if the members who are on the phone are okay with it, I will ask for a motion to approve that resolution.
So moved.
Thank you all. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, then the motion carries, the resolution is approved, and it's approved unanimously. That was the last agenda item on the SESC agenda. Is there any other business to come before this board? There being none, may I have, please, a motion to adjourn?
I make the motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Joan. Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. The motion carries and the resolution is, I'm sorry, and the motion to adjourn is approved. You all have a great day.